Hello, everybody. My name is Gayla Bartlett, and thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Faith in Your Community, where we get to talk to some of the wonderful community leaders that we have here in our surrounding area. So excited to have with me today Reverend Pamela Cochrane. She is the lead minister at Maple Street Congregational Church. So welcome, Pam. How are you today?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Thank you so much, Gayla, for inviting me to come join you.
Absolutely. So now that we are in a different time and place in church ministry and doing things in new and creative ways, can you tell me some of the fun things that you've been doing with your congregation and with your youth as well there at Maple Street?
Well, it has been challenging, as I know you know, being in the virtual world of calling people together. First I got to say, I'm so fortunate that Maple Street Church has had this commitment to recording worship and archiving. And over the last 2 years, they spent a lot of energy improving our capabilities, not only a new sound system in our sanctuary, but also Wi-Fi in the whole building. So even though our building is not open for use, the access to this kind of link up really allowed us to feel somewhat comfortable about jumping into what it means to do online programming and worship. Now, that's not to say there weren't challenges. And there were many moments we just had to go, let's just do it. Well, I was not a virtual minister and doing Facebook live streaming before pandemic, but that didn't stop us from saying we have to be where the people are and where we can reach them. So the Facebook platform really allows us to connect with a lot of folks who can then share that they're connecting with us, right? So when we live stream worship, that's really where we began. And they could see who else was joining the page. As you know, it's instant. You can be anywhere on your phone or your device. But we wanted to do more. Worship was our first thing we tackled.
Right.
But then how do we reach people in a more intimate setting? And how do we reach our families and our kids? I was so impressed. I think I had tried Zoom once or twice. Church folks, we like to meet in person. We like to sit across the table, be outside, create these happenings. But I said Zoom would be able to kind of create that intimate. So the minute we tried it, we realized that even our younger people are much more adept at it. They had no fear, and they really saw it as a good place for us to bring people together. We've joked about the pictures of all of us on the grid, whether you call that Hollywood Squares or your Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
But our kids really enjoyed that forum, and as well as our families who, if you remember, in March, we had to stay at home. So this was a creative way to do story time. We were able to also do our more intimate Tuesday evening worship on Zoom, where we would have up to maybe 14, 16 people, or sometimes it would just be 8 people gathering. That was really crucial for helping people have a place where they could really share what was going on. Now, the fun thing with kids is that they know immediately how to use the other options on Zoom. Like you can have a chalkboard and they're drawing a picture. They can show me one of the programs that some of the schools were doing was to get butterflies, and they could show me how they got the caterpillars and had a container, and each week they would show me how the progress of the caterpillar turning into a chrysalis and then the butterflies, and together on Zoom we were able to release the butterflies together.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah,
that was really great. Now, I have done a few things that, like, I did decide to go outside one storytelling time and sit under a tree, and did get a bit of a sunburn. But that was worth it, because then we got to talk about spring coming to life. There's been a lot of really good sharing for churches. We are not alone in being able to do Zoom. A lot of our churches, even in Danvers, are having their worship on Zoom. There's 2 things about public access and how do you get that access available in these different platforms. And the invitation for Zoom is that more intimate circle. We found early on that we needed to have a bigger platform for worship so that everyone could have access to it. And thanks to DCAT, we've had that partnership because so many people don't have the devices or the latest technology to get or want to be on Facebook. And so having it on the Access cable channels for folks has just been really significant, and people have I think you've seen probably more people turning to the program.
Absolutely, yep. Which is great. So I know that you talked about technology and DCAT and doing your Zoom calls with the families. How are you reaching out to our senior population that might not have the access to the internet or the TV stations because they don't have cable? Or how are you reaching out to those folks who still need to be nurtured and cared for?
Well, I do love the fact that we've gone back to enjoying how significant a phone call can be when you just pick up the phone and are talking. It's not, we had moved to, we were so embedded in that email mode where you didn't need to have a phone conversation.
Right.
So Reverend Douglas and I spent a lot of time making sure that we called and talked with all of our congregation. That helped establish where they were and being able to communicate how isolated they actually were or felt they were isolated. And then slowly, not in those first stages, but as we were getting into April, and certainly now, we are doing what we call porch visits, driveway visits. This is really significant because we're all feeling this loss. And of course, this was the springtime where we are experiencing all the loss of events, from personal milestones, whether they were birthdays or weddings, and now all the graduations. It was great. A lot of our folks, some of our older folks were the ones who established the parade for the seniors in our congregation just this past weekend.
And you even presented the scholarship.
And
social distancing.
Like Publishers Clearinghouse, yes. But was able to show up on the lawn of a senior that we were able to video that and then include that. Great. The church was able to even hold their annual meeting online. Yeah.
So that's good. So I know, and being a pastor in this transformation of COVID and trying to gear the church up and get the church ready for the next steps, I know it's going to be a challenging time, seeing as how you just took over when Kevin left. So that is, you're the new pastor taking over the full reign, and then having to deal with COVID as well is definitely let's test the new pastor and see how she does.
Yeah, for you. This. I think there's a place of, faith calling us to stand really firm on that calm, consistent presence, to be like, we just need to look at things in a new way.
Right.
Some of my background in working with churches through change, through times of transition, this would be pretty extreme. It's been definitely difficult for all clergy to walk with something that we have high alert every day. I think we're just getting into a place of being able to imagine beyond the immediacy of each day and the issues that a lot of folks are facing of loss, whether they know someone who has passed because of COVID, or other issues that are going on that haven't stopped, but are keeping people separated. Our families are going through a really hard time, not knowing about the uncertainty of schools and places.
Right.
And our own nursery school will face those issues. But the community leaders, Danvers Cares has been meeting through all of this, and the leadership in the school, our civic leaders, have really done a great job of communicating availability and what this might look like. And I think you've probably talked with other leaders and realized that majority of our churches, mainline churches, are suspending in-person worship with large groups of people through the summer, to give time to really see how we could do this in a in a way that is safe for everyone,
Right.
which we don't want to exclude anyone. So we will
Absolutely.
do a lot of small group
Mhm.
opportunities for folks to know that their church is here, and we encourage folks to be in touch with specific needs. And that's something that now we're able to hold meetings on Zoom. So the business
Right.
of church moves on, but it's going to take, we use that term in church, discernment. It takes intentional thinking about how we're going to be doing things in a different way. And I think the Danvers Interfaith Partnership
Right.
for leadership team will now start to be able, each of us as church leaders, we're working on what was happening in our own churches. That was very
Right.
demanding. And we're just now being able to realize that we will have an ability to work together to see how we can reach and make it accessible for folks to know that our churches are open, or all of our communities of faith are open,
Right.
especially with the issues of, we're facing today with the protests and need to face questions and dialogue about racism. I see many more opportunities for us to kind of bring people together in a safe way.
Right.
And certainly DCAT, I hope will, and your show, I hope will be part of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned Danvers Cares, and I don't know if everybody knows that you have been the chair for the past year.
Yes.
So are you actively the chair, or when does that end? Does it end in June, July?
Annual meeting, and it's I'm going to continue on. We've moved from just the model of chair and co-chair to a steering committee, which I think will be good for consistency. One of the big spring things, again, that had to be postponed was Light the Night Purple.
Right.
We want that to happen in the fall if possible. So it'll give us a chance to see where we progress into, again, uncertain times for the school. And we're looking, to continue to have leaders come to the table that are willing to be creative. And both the YMCA and our schools and all of the programs that offer Endicott Park, they're trying to be as creative as they can.
Right. Which is great. I know, because the senior center has done online Zumba lessons and trying to keep everybody engaged that way. So when you talked about the interfaith, you've been on the show before, and we've talked to different people from the interfaith committee. So knowing that your youth, and you have your outreach, you have your youth, you've done the Common Cathedral together and things like that. What do you see you working together to do for the youth coming up? I mean, are you going to have like a virtual youth group, or what do you plan for them next?
I think that's going to be our biggest challenge because of the schedule for our youth, and schooling is going to continue to demand kind of an online presence for them. You hear from families just how, they're all zoomed out. And that's the last thing we want to do, is pressure to also, add to that. But I do think the mission and outreach is going to be our strength. We like to support this Danvers Interfaith Youth Program. And we're just seeing how the nonprofits will be able to have kind of that access, and other youth groups that are larger in other communities have been able to do gatherings online and then try and come up with an initiative. My biggest sign that we will be able to do this in some way is that the youth really came out for the protests, come in solidarity, and stood on the silence on last Friday. So many were young people and family. This is the voice we need to amplify.
Right.
So I'm encouraged. I would love ideas, and people know they can get in touch with us, whether it's info@maplestreetchurch.com or go to our website. It's very active. You can find pretty much all of our programs and invitations to get involved at maplestreetchurch.org. But this is an ongoing shared ministry that we will do with the community.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your taking the time out. I know you've been busy with all your meetings you've had to do and keeping the kids active and engaged on their storytelling time and everything. So we look forward to meeting. We'll probably have a special episode with Pastor Reverend Douglas. We'll meet with him later on when he can talk to us about his pastoral care and everything he's done at Maple Street Church. So we'll look forward to meeting with him as soon as he's available. We'll reschedule to meet him. So thank you so much. Is there anything you want to say to anybody in closing? would you like to say a quick little prayer?
Oh, I just want to shout out on a blessing for those who bring people together during this time. There are so many who are feeling isolated and separated. So please know that you are not alone, and that your faith communities in this town are actively seeking to support people in all of the ways we can, not just physically, but it's really that spiritual self that we hope you will connect in some way to find that rest and care you need for yourself. So, and thank you too, Gayla. Find that space for yourself today, and remember that you're not alone.
Thank you. Well, thank you everybody for joining us here today on another episode of Faith in Your Community. And make sure you check back with us next time as we meet some wonderful faith community people here in our Danvers community. Thank you so much, Danvers, and have a great day.